This country has a bright future.
We have something to be proud of.
I'm the champion of liberty. We've got the answers. We don't have leadership.
If you want to become president of the United States, you got to let both people speak.
We should make English the official language.
I won't rest until I repeal Obama.
You had your chance. Let me speak.
You're out of time.
Forcing girls to take an inoculation.
Just because our economy is sick doesn't mean our values are sick.
It is a Ponzi scheme.
My 999 plan is a bold solution.
This country is never again going to bail out corporations.
I will build the fence.
We know how to secure the border.
This is about nation building at home.
The American people create jobs, not government.
Government's not very capable of managing almost anything.
Middle-income Americans need a break, and I'll give it to them.
This economy is on life support.
If you are too big to fail, you are too big.
Tonight from South Carolina, the Republicans who would be president address critical issues of national security and foreign affairs. It's the commander-in-chief debate. 8 candidates, 90 minutes, all starting in just a moment.
See you at work.
The Infiniti Limited Engagement Winter Event. Come in now for our best offers of the year. Lease an Infiniti G sedan for only $299 a month.
How could a luminous protein in jellyfish impact life expectancy in the U.S., real estate in Hong Kong, and the optics industry in Germany? At T. Rowe Price, we understand the connections of a complex global economy. It's just one reason over 75% of our mutual funds beat their 10-year Lipper average. T. Rowe Price.
Good evening from Wofford College in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I'm Scott Pelley with CBS News, along with my colleague Major Garrett of National Journal. In just under a year now, Americans will go to the polls to choose a president. Tonight, CBS News and National Journal are pleased to bring you a discussion of the issues by the Republican candidates for their party's nomination. The focus will be foreign policy and national security, the president's role as commander-in-chief. Consider this. The 9/11 attacks came in the 8th month of a new presidency, the Bay of Pigs in the 13th week, and the Civil War on the 40th day of a new presidency. Reminders from history that a president must be prepared to deal with a crisis from day one. The ground rules for tonight's debate are simple. A candidate who is asked a question will have 1 minute to respond, and then at the discretion of the moderators, there can be a 30-second follow-up or a 30-second rebuttal from another candidate. The debate will run a total of 90 minutes. The first hour will be broadcast right here on the CBS television network. The entire 90 minutes will be streamed on cbsnews.com and nationaljournal.com. And we invite you to submit questions during the debate to either website. Joining me now in asking the questions, Major Garrett.
Scott, thank you very much. One more piece of housekeeping. Let's introduce the candidates. Former Utah Governor Jon Huntsman. Representing the 6th District of Minnesota, Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann. Representing the 14th District of Texas, Congressman Ron Paul. From Atlanta, Georgia, businessman Herman Cain. Former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich. Current Texas Governor Rick Perry. And former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum. Mr. Cain, I'd like to begin this evening with you, sir.
Yes.
This week, a UN nuclear watchdog agency provided additional credible evidence that Iran is pursuing a nuclear weapon. If you were president right now, what would you do specifically that this administration is not doing to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon?
The first thing that I would do is to assist the opposition movement in Iran that's trying to overthrow the regime. Our enemies are not the people of Iran, it's the regime. And a regime change is what they are trying to achieve. Secondly, we need to put economic pressure on Iran by way of our own energy independence strategy. By having our own energy independence strategy, we will impact the price of oil on the world market, because Iran uses oil not only as a means of currency, but they use it as a weapon. One of the reasons that they are able to afford that nuclear weapons program is because of oil. Secondly, we would then work to increase sanctions on Iran along with our friends and our allies. So whereas we will not be, so as where I do believe that they have a nuclear weapons program and they are closer to having a nuclear weapon, stopping them, the only way we can stop them is through economic means.
A quick follow-up, Mr. King.
Yes.
When you say assisting the opposition, would you entertain military assistance to that opposition?
No, not at this time. I would not entertain military opposition. I'm talking about to help the opposition movement within the country. And then there's one other thing that we could do. We could deploy our ballistic missile defense capable Aegis warships strategically in that part of the world. We have the biggest fleet of those warships in the world, and we could use them strategically in the event that they were able to fire a ballistic missile.
Governor Romney, would it be worth going to war to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon?
Well, let's start back from there, and let's talk about where we are. This is, of course, President Obama's greatest failing from a foreign policy standpoint, which is he recognized the gravest threat that America and the world faced was a nuclear Iran, and he did not do what was necessary to get Iran to be dissuaded from their nuclear folly. What he should have done is speak out when dissidents took to the streets and say America is with you, and work on a covert basis to encourage the dissidents. Number two, he should have put in place crippling sanctions against Iran. But instead of getting Russia, for instance, to when he gave in our missile defense system to agree to stand with those crippling sanctions, he gave Russia what they wanted, their number one foreign policy objective, and got nothing in return.
That's the time, Governor, on the question. We're going to adhere to time very quickly, but let me...
I get 60 seconds.
Yes, sir, and
that was 30.
The 60...
Sorry, it started at yellow, so I have much more time to go.
You know what, Governor? I stand corrected. You are right. Please continue.
All right, thank you. Finally, the president should have built credible threat of military action and made it very clear that the United States of America is willing, in the final analysis, if necessary, to take military action to keep Iran from having a nuclear weapon. Look, one thing you can know, and that is if we re-elect Barack Obama, Iran will have a nuclear weapon. And if we elect Mitt Romney, if you elect me as the next president, they will not have a nuclear weapon.
But, sir, you just described where we are today, and that's what you're going to have to deal with if you become president. How do you prevent them from obtaining a nuclear weapon? Is it worth going to war to prevent that?
Well, it's worth putting in place crippling sanctions. It's worth working with the insurgents in the country to encourage regime change in the country. And if all else fails, if after all of the work we've done, there's nothing else we can do besides take military action, then of course you take military action. It is unacceptable for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. We will not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. This term unacceptable has been applied by several presidents over history, and our current president has made it very clear that he's not willing to do those things necessary to get Iran to be dissuaded from their nuclear folly. I will take a different course. I will make sure that the sanctions, diplomatic pressure, economic pressure, and support of insurgents within the country help them become dissuaded to get away from their nuclear ambition.
This time, it is time.
Yeah, and finally, have that military threat out there.
On the follow-ups. We're going to try to adhere to the time.
Mr. Speaker, is this the right way to look at this question, war or not war? Or do you see other options diplomatically or other non-war means that the United States has at its possession with dealing with Iran that it has not employed?
Well, let me start and say that both the answers you just got are superior to the current administration. You know, there are a number of ways to be smart about Iran and relatively few ways to be dumb, and the administration skipped all the ways to be smart.
Could you tell us the smart ways,
sure.
Mr. Speaker?
First of all, maximum covert operations to block and disrupt the Iranian program, including taking out their scientists, including breaking up their systems, all of it covertly, all of it deniable. Second, maximum coordination with the Israelis in a way which allows them to maximize their impact in Iran. Third, absolute strategic program comparable to what President Reagan, Pope John Paul II, and Margaret Thatcher did to the Soviet Union, of every possible aspect short of war, of breaking the regime and bringing it down. And I agree entirely with Governor Romney. If in the end, despite all of those things, the dictatorship persists, you have to take whatever steps are necessary to break its capacity to have a nuclear weapon.
Congressman Paul, let me follow up with you for just 30 seconds. Is it worth going to war to prevent a nuclear weapon in Iran?
No, it isn't worthwhile. And the only way you would do that is you would have to go to the Congress. We as Commander-in-Chief aren't making the decision to go to war. You know, the old-fashioned way, the Constitution, you go to the Congress and find out if our national security is threatened. And I'm afraid what's going on right now is similar to the war propaganda that went on against Iraq. And, you know, they didn't have weapons of mass destruction, and it was orchestrated, and it was, to me, a tragedy of what's happened these last 10 years, the death and destruction, $4 trillion in debt. So, no, it's not worthwhile going to war. If you do, you get a declaration of war, and you fight it, and you win it, and get it over with.
Thank you, Congressman. Governor Perry, what's your appraisal of the combat situation on the ground in Afghanistan today, and what would you change?
Let me answer the previous question very quickly, if I may.
Governor, I'd like to move on. Could you give me a sense of your appraisal of the combat situation?
I can do both in 1 minute, I'll promise you.
There you go.
And the issue that has not been raised is that this country can sanction the Iranian Central Bank right now and shut down that country's economy. And that's what this president needs to do, and the American people need to stand up and force him to make that stand today. Now, let me address this issue of Afghanistan and how we deal with it. The mission must be completed there. The idea that we will have wasted our treasure and the lives of young Americans to not secure Afghanistan is not appropriate. But the idea that we would give a timetable to our enemy is irresponsible from a military standpoint. It's irresponsible from the lives of our young men and women, and it is irresponsible leadership of this president to give a timetable to pull out of any country that we're in conflict with.
But, Governor, if I can just follow up for 30 seconds. The question was, what's your appraisal of the combat situation on the ground there, and what would you change as Commander-in-Chief?
Well, obviously, we're discussing with our commanders on the field about what's going on in Afghanistan. I think we're making progress there. The issue is training up the Afghan security forces so that we're comfortable that they can protect that citizenry and continue to take the war to the terrorists that are using Afghanistan and Pakistan, I might add. Is a very complex part of the world. But I think that our military is doing the best job that they can, considering the lack of support that they're getting from this administration, telegraphing to the enemy when we're going to pull out.
Senator Santorum, I know you want to jump in on Iran. I'll give you that opportunity here just a second. So let me merge two things if I could, just 1 second. The Taliban said earlier this summer, quote, the Afghans have an endless stamina for a long war. If you were Commander-in-Chief, would you have endless stamina for victory in Afghanistan? And would you this evening define victory in Afghanistan for the American people? And please weigh in, I know you do want to, on Iran.
Thank you very much, Major. I appreciate that. Victory against the Taliban in Afghanistan is that the Taliban is a neutered force. They are no longer a security threat to the Afghan people or to our country. That would be victory. Doesn't mean wipe them out. You can't wipe them out, but they're no longer a security threat. The bigger issue, and I know there's those of us at the end who don't get a lot of questions, and so this is the most important national security issue that we're going to be dealing with here in this year, and that's the issue of Iran getting a nuclear weapon. I think everyone should have the opportunity to answer that question, particularly me. I've been working on Iran since back in 2004. And I proposed exactly the things that Herman and Mitt Romney suggested, which was to give money to the rebel forces there to help the pro-democracy movement and to put tough sanctions in place. I was opposed by President Bush, and yet we were able to overcome that and pass the Iran Freedom and Support Act. I was able to get that done, and then President Bush didn't provide money for the pro-democracy movement, and President Obama cut that money. We have a situation that's different. I disagree with Newt. More sanctions and providing, more support for the pro-democracy movement isn't going to be enough in time. Read the IAEA report.
Senator, I'm sorry, that's time. I'm sorry. We're going to try to adhere to time and be fair to everyone in the application of that rule.
I understand. Just let me finish my final comment. My final comment is we should be working with Israel right now to do what they did in Syria, what they did in Iraq, which is take out that nuclear capability before the next explosion we hear in Iran is a nuclear one, and then the world changes.
That is time. Thank you. Representative Bachmann, do you think the 30,000 surge troops in Afghanistan have made a difference, and if so, where?
They absolutely have, but it's unfortunate. The request was made for 40,000 troops. President Obama dithered for approximately 2 months when he should have given the full complement of 40,000 troops. When he gave 30,000 troops to the effort in Afghanistan, that meant that a decision had to be made. With 40,000 troops, they could have conducted the war going into the southern province in Helmand and also going into the eastern province and dealing with the problem all at once and coming to victory that much sooner and bringing our troops home. When 30,000 troops were given, then our troops did the very best that they could by going into the south and dealing in the Helmand province. We actually have seen improvement down by Kandahar. That's a very good thing, and that's because of the brave actions by our men and women in that area. However, we have to recognize now President Obama has made a very fatal decision in Afghanistan. He's made the decision that by next September, our troops will be withdrawn. If that is the case, how do we expect any of our allies to continue to work with us? How can we even begin to seek the peace with the Haqqani network that are in the eastern region?
Thank you, Congressman Bachmann. Thank you very much. Let me come over to you, Governor Huntsman, and ask you, we are seeing spikes in casualties in Afghanistan in new places. Can you explain to me what's happening there and how you would change that as Commander-in-Chief?
Well, I think the spikes obviously are driven by lack of security, proper security in certain parts of the country, which could plague us for a very, very long time to come. I take a different approach on Afghanistan. I say it's time to come home. I say this nation has achieved its key objectives in Afghanistan. We've had free elections in 2004. We've uprooted the Taliban. We've dismantled al-Qaeda. We have killed Osama bin Laden. I say this nation's future is not Afghanistan. This nation's future is not Iraq. This nation's future is how prepared we are to meet the 21st century competitive challenges. That's economic and that's education. And that's going to play out over the Asia-Pacific region. And we're either prepared for that reality or we're not. I don't want to be nation building in Afghanistan when this nation so desperately needs to be built.
Make sure I understand. Bring all the troops home today.
Here's what I would keep behind because we still have work to do. We don't need 100,000 troops nation building, many of whom can't cross the wire. I think we need a component that gathers tactical intelligence. We need enhanced special forces response capability for rapid response, and we need some ongoing commitment to train the local Afghan National Army. That's not 100,000 troops. That's well south of that. We are fighting an asymmetric threat, a counter-terror threat, not only there, but in Waziristan and every other corner of the world, and we need to prepare for that as a reality of our 21st century foreign policy.
And that's time. Thank you, sir.
Governor Romney, a much smaller footprint in Afghanistan. Do you support that? And secondarily, sir, is it time or would it ever be time for the United States to negotiate with the Taliban?
We don't negotiate with terrorists. I'd not negotiate with the Taliban. That's something for the Afghans to decide how they're going to pursue their course in the future. With regards to our footprint in Afghanistan, the right course is for us to do our very best to secure the victories that have been so hard won by the soldiers, the men and women of our fighting forces who've been in Afghanistan. The commanders on the field feel that we can take out 30 to 40,000 troops sometime by the end of next year. The commander-in-chief, perhaps looking at the calendar of the election, decided to bring them home in September instead, in the middle of the fighting season. Our commander said that puts our troops at risk, at danger. Please don't pull them out there, they said. But he said, no, I'm going to get them out early. I think that was a mistake. Our surge troops should have been withdrawn by December of next year, not by September. And the timetable by the end of 2014 is the right timetable for us to be completely withdrawn from Afghanistan, other than a small footprint of support forces.
Mr. Speaker, how do you achieve peace in Afghanistan if you don't negotiate with the Taliban?
I don't think you do.
Would you agree that the Taliban...
Look, I think this is so much bigger and deeper a problem than we've talked about as a country that we don't have a clue how hard this is going to be. First of all, the Taliban survives for the very same reason that historically we've said guerrillas always survive, which is they have a sanctuary. The sanctuary is Pakistan. You're never going to stop the Taliban as long as they can hide. And you have proof every week in new bombings and new killings and new training. So I think this has to be a much larger strategic discussion that starts with, frankly, Pakistan on the one end and Iran on the other, because Afghanistan is in between the two countries and is the least important of the three countries.
Related to that, Mr. Kaine, I'd like to pick up on a point that Speaker Gingrich just made. You have said about foreign policy, America needs to be clear about who its friends are and who its foes are. So this evening, sir, Pakistan, friend or foe?
We don't know, because Pakistan is not clear, because Pakistan is where Osama bin Laden was found and eliminated. Secondly, Pakistan has had a conversation with President Karzai from Afghanistan, and President Karzai has said that if the United States gets into a dispute with Pakistan, then Afghanistan is going to side with Pakistan. There is a lot of clarity missing, like Speaker Gingrich says, in this whole region, and they are all interrelated. So there isn't a clear answer as to whether or not Pakistan is a friend or foe. That relationship must be reevaluated.
If you were president, sir, and your National Security Council asked you what questions you would want answered to find out a better answer to this very question, what would you tell them?
I would ask them, what commitments is Pakistan willing to make to assure the United States of America that they are a friend or a foe, and be specific about that. Will they make commitments relative to the commitment of their military? If we have to make commitments, are they willing to come to some regional agreement about what we need to do? We need a regional strategy in that area of the world such that all of our allies, we work together in order to come up with those things that will be mutually beneficial to everyone. Those are the questions that need to be asked.
Governor Perry, why is Pakistan playing a double game, saying that it supports the United States one moment and then supporting terrorists who are killing American troops the next? What's going on there?
Listen, I think we're having an interesting conversation here, but the deeper one is that the speaker makes a reference to is the whole issue of foreign aid. And we need a president of the United States working with a Congress that sends a clear message to every country. It doesn't make any difference whether it's Pakistan or whether it's Afghanistan or whether it's India. The foreign aid budget in my administration for every country is going to start at $0. $0. And then we'll have a conversation. Then we'll have a conversation in this country about whether or not a penny of our taxpayer dollars needs to go into those countries. And Pakistan is clearly sending us messages, Mitt. It's clearly sending us messages that they don't deserve our foreign aid that we're getting because they're not being honest with us. American soldiers' lives are being put at jeopardy because of that country and the decisions that they're made. And it's time for us as a country to say no to foreign aid to countries that don't support the United States of America.
That's time, Governor. Governor, let me give you 30 seconds in the follow-up to go back to the question. Why is Pakistan playing this double game? Help us understand what's going on there.
They've been doing this for years. Their political people are not who are in charge of that country. It's the military. It's the Secret Service. That's who's running that country. And I don't trust them. And we need to send clear messages. We need to do foreign aid completely different. I'm telling you, no dollars going into those countries. As a matter of fact, if they want any American aid, any country, unless we say differently, then American manufacturing, big companies, small companies going in to help create economic impact in those countries,
Governor,
rather than just dollars flowing into some administration.
Thank you very much.
Congresswoman Bachmann, you serve on the Intelligence Committee. I'd like to get your assessment of what you think is happening in Pakistan, especially with the Haqqani Network. And you know from sitting on that committee that those in the diplomatic corps in this country and even the intelligence community believe that there is a tangible benefit at times to properly applied foreign aid from this country. So I want to know if you agree with the governor on that question starting at zero, and also your assessment of the intelligence situation in Pakistan and what we should do about it.
Pakistan is a very difficult area because they have been housing terrorists, and terrorists have been training there, Al-Qaeda as well as Haqqani, as well as other militias dealing with terrorist organizations. But I would not agree with that assessment to pull all foreign aid from Pakistan. I would reduce foreign aid to many, many countries, but there's a problem because Pakistan has a nuclear weapon. We have more people affiliated with Al-Qaeda closer to that nuclear bomb than in any other nation. This is an extremely important issue, and I think it underscores exactly why the next commander-in-chief has to understand from day one the intricacies that are happening in the Middle East. This is a very dangerous time. If you look at Iran and if you look at Pakistan and if you look at the link with Syria, because Iran is working through proxies like Syria, through Hezbollah, through Hamas, it seems that the table is being set for a worldwide nuclear war against Israel. And if there's anything that we know, President Obama has been more than willing to stand with Occupy Wall Street, but he hasn't been willing to stand with Israel. Israel looks at President Obama and they do not see a friend.
Congresswoman, thank you. Speaker Gingrich, you presided as Speaker over several foreign aid budgets for the United States, and I remember covering in 1995 the intervention on behalf of the Mexican peso. You have seen at times the proper role of the United States through foreign aid and other interventions. I want to know if you agree with Governor Perry about starting at zero.
Absolutely. I mean, what he said made absolutely perfect sense. Why would you start every year? And consider the alternative. You're giving some countries $7 billion a year. So you start off, or in the case of Egypt, $3 billion a year. So you start off every year and say, here's your $3 billion, now I'll start thinking. You ought to start off at zero and say, explain to me why I should give you a penny. And let me tell you, the fact that the Pakistanis, think about this, the Pakistanis hid bin Laden for at least 6 years in a military city within a mile of their National Defense University, and then they got mad at the people who turned him over to us, and we think those are the acts of allies? I think it's a pretty good idea to start at zero and sometimes stay there.
Just a quick follow-up, Mr. Speaker. Since you mentioned Egypt, Mr. Speaker, I just want to know if you were president, if the aid that we currently provide on an annualized basis to Egypt would be completely rethought and possibly eliminated if you were president.
It would certainly be completely rethought, and candidly, the degree to which the Arab Spring may become an anti-Christian spring is something which bothers me a great deal, and I would certainly have the State Department intervening on behalf of the Coptic Christians who are being persecuted under the new system, having their churches burned, having people killed, and I'd be pretty insistent that we are not going to be supportive of a regime which is explicitly hostile to religions other than Islam.
Senator Santorum, if a Pakistani nuclear weapon goes missing, what do you do?
Well, let me just stop back and say I disagree with a lot of what was said up here. Pakistan must be a friend of the United States for the reason that Michelle outlined. Pakistan is a nuclear power, and there are people in that country that if they gain control of that country will create a situation equal to the situation that is now percolating in Iran. So we can't be indecisive about whether Pakistan is our friend. They must be our friend. And we must engage them as friends, get over the difficulties we have, as we did with Saudi Arabia, with respect to the events of 9/11. The terrorists came from Saudi Arabia, and we said, well, you know what? It's important for us to maintain that relationship in spite of those difficulties. And it's important for us with a nuclear power, with a very vast number of people in Pakistan who are radicalizing, that we keep a solid and stable relationship and work through our difficulties. It is that important, and we must maintain that relationship.
But the Pakistanis backed a terrorist network, the Haqqani network, that laid siege to the NATO headquarters and the U.S. Embassy in Kabul for 20 hours a few weeks ago.
Well, the Pakistanis
How do you make friends out of Pakistan?
A lot of the Pakistanis and most of the government would say they don't back the Haqqani network, and the Haqqani network causes as much trouble in Pakistan as it has caused us in Afghanistan. We need to work with the elements of Pakistan, and there are elements in the government of Pakistan and the military. We need to continue those joint exercises. We need to continue the aid relationship. And of course, we all know the aid relationship when it comes to military aid is all spent in the United States. So it's not giving money away. It's sending military hardware, which creates jobs in this country, to those countries, creating nexus and relationships and dependency on our weapon systems that's important for those future relationships.
Senator, we'll have to leave it right there. We will have more of the Republican Commander-in-Chief debate in just a moment.
I gotta figure this out. I want to focus on innovation, but my data is doubling. Servers are maxed out. I need to think about something else when I run.
With efficient IT solutions from Dell, Doug can shift up to 50% of his company's technology spend from operating costs to innovation. So his company runs better, and so does Doug. Dell, the power to do more.
See you at work.
The Infinity Limited Engagement Winter Event. Come in now for our best offers of the year. Lease an Infinity G sedan for only $299 a month.
Aren't you getting a little emotional?
Aren't you getting a little industrial?
Okay, there's enough energy right here in America.
Yeah, over 100 years.
So you mean you just ignore the environment?
Actually, it's cleaner.
And it provides jobs, and it helps our economy.
Okay, I'm listening.
At ConocoPhillips, we're helping power America's economy with cleaner, affordable natural gas. More jobs, less emissions. A good answer for everyone.
So by reducing the impact of production
and protecting our land and water.
I might get a job once we graduate.
Hot deals are stacking up at the PetSmart Veterans Day sale. Save $10 on select Purina Pro Plan dog food and save 30% on all Top Paw dog beds. Wednesday through Tuesday only at PetSmart.
The immigration debate
should not be about the color of people's skin,
or their country of origin,
or their religion,
or where their grandparents were born.
The debate should be about the numbers. Should Congress give work permits
to 1 million new legal immigrants again this year?
When 20 million Americans of all colors,
national origins,
and religions are having trouble finding jobs.
Immigration. It's about the numbers.
The numbers.
The numbers.
Tell Congress at numbersusa.org. Paid for by Numbers USA.
To get a professional cleansing system, you could spend as much as $200. Olay says challenge that with an instrument that cleanses as effectively as what's sold by skin professionals for a whole lot less. New Olay Pro X Advanced Cleansing System.
Well, I don't understand. Why would we file a Schedule C? I mean, we're not a corporation.
So what do you guys think?
Mom jeans. I mean, they're fine, you know, if you're gonna hang drywall or something. I say if you got it, flaunt it. And you are smoking hot. You gotta show off that bundt cake.
You know I've always liked my bundt cake.
Great! Now about that hair.
Make us part of your family. Look for dairy brands with the real California seals.
Welcome back to Spartanburg, South Carolina, and the Republican Commander-in-Chief debate. I'm Scott Pelley with CBS News, along with Major Garrett of National Journal.
Thanks again, Scott. Mr. Speaker, you said yesterday that Governor Romney is a competent manager, but you said you were unsure if he was really capable of changing Washington. You said you were the change agent. Based on the arc of this campaign and perhaps what you've heard tonight, would you care to evaluate Governor Romney's ability to think outside the box and change the United States' national security or foreign policy perspectives?
No.
You said so last night, sir. Then what was the point, sir? Then what was the point, sir, of bringing it up yesterday on a national radio show?
I brought it up yesterday because I was on a national radio show. I think he brings up things when he's on national radio shows. We're here tonight talking to the American people about why every single one of us is better than Barack Obama, and that's a topic I'd love to talk about.
Then, Mr. Speaker, if you would like
by
to.
the way, let me just say, compared to this administration, talking about a friend who's a great business manager as a good manager is an enormous improvement over Barack Obama.
Then, Mr. Speaker, I will remember you talking as Speaker about the necessity of leaders to think outside the box.
Yes.
If you were president, how would you think outside the box about some of the issues we've discussed here tonight?
Oh, in a number of ways. As I said earlier, I would explicitly adopt the Reagan, John Paul II, Thatcher strategy towards Iran. I would do the same thing towards North Korea. I would adopt a very strong policy towards the United Nations of dramatically taking on its absurdities. I would explicitly repudiate what Obama's done on Agenda 21 as the kind of interference from the United Nations that's wrong. There are a number of other areas. I would also, frankly, apply Lean Six Sigma to the Pentagon to liberate the money to rebuild the Navy. We need a capital investment program, and this administration is shrinking the Navy to a point where it's going to be incapable of doing its job worldwide. So there are a number of places I would be thinking outside the box.
And that's time, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. Mr. Kane, you've often said that you'll listen to your generals for their advice before making decisions as Commander-in-Chief. How will you know when you should overrule your generals?
The approach to making a critical decision, first make sure that you surround yourself with the right people. And I feel that I'll be able to make that assessment when we put together the cabinet and all of the people from the military, etc. You will know you're making the right decision when you consider all the facts and ask them for alternatives. It is up to the Commander-in-Chief to make that judgment call based upon all the facts. And because I'll have a multiple group of people offering different recommendations, this gives me the best opportunity to select the one that makes the most amount of sense. But ultimately, it's up to the Commander-in-Chief to make that decision.
Senator Santorum, this is really a question about how you build a leadership model. How, sir, would you decide when it was necessary for you as Commander-in-Chief to overrule the advice you get from either your civilian advisors or your military advisors?
Well, I'll come into to the office of presidency with a very clear agenda, and we'll get people together that will share my point of view. When I was in the United States Senate, I didn't hire people who didn't share how I approach the problem. That's what the people of this country are electing. They're electing someone who's going to be very crystal clear, and as you heard from my first two answers, I don't mince words. I say exactly what I believe, and then I follow through and do what I say. I did that when I was in public life before. Even though I represented a state that wasn't a particularly conservative state, I followed through and did that, and I will surround myself with people who will execute what I promised the American public to do, and then we will go about the process of doing it.
You mentioned your agenda. If you could prioritize 1 or 2 points, maybe more if you'd like, what your key agenda is on national security.
Well, obviously, the issue we were talking about before, which is, number one, Iran must not get a nuclear weapon, and we will go about whatever it takes to make sure that happens. I hope that some of the things that I've talked about here and Newt's thing that I've been talking about for a while, which is covert activity. You know, there have been scientists turning up dead in Russia and in Iran. There have been computer viruses. There have been problems at their facility. I hope that the United States has been involved with that. I hope that we've been doing everything we can covertly to make sure that that program doesn't proceed forward. And if we're lucky enough, and I'm not sure we will be, that if no action is taken and we still don't have a nuclear Iran, that would be my laser beam focus to make sure that would not happen.
And that's time, Senator. Thank you very much. Governor Perry, you advocate the elimination of the Department of Energy. If you eliminate the Department of Energy...
Glad you remembered it.
I've had some time to think about it, sir.
Me too.
If you eliminate the Department of Energy, what do you do with the nuclear weapons?
Well, there are plenty of places in our government that can have oversight on our nuclear energy. But let me back over to the question that you asked before this about what is the most important thing from a strategic standpoint, Commander-in-Chief. For 10 years, I have been the Commander-in-Chief of over 20,000 plus individuals in the state of Texas as we've dealt with a host of either natural disasters or having deployments into the combat zones. So if there's someone on this stage who has had that hands-on commander-in-chief experience, it is me, as the governor of the state of Texas. I've dealt with generals. I have individuals at the Department of Defense who have been at the highest levels, both on the civilian side and on the military side, that will help me make decisions about those issues that we face as a country. So I feel very comfortable from day one of surrounding myself with individuals who have extraordinary backgrounds in national defense and will be able to put this country on a track that Americans will feel we know that we're going to be secure,
and that's
including the southern border of this country with Mexico.
And that's time. Thank you.
I don't need to tell the people on this stage that presidential politics is interactive business, and of course this debate is interactive as well. And we have an email question, I'm happy to say, emailed into the National Journal, and it comes from Stephen Shafroth of the Dells, Oregon. And I'd like to address this question to Mr. Kane. Stephen writes, I served on an aircraft carrier during the Vietnam War. I believe that torture is always wrong in all cases. What is your stance on torture?
I believe in following the procedures that have been established by our military. I do not agree with torture, period. However, I will trust the judgment of our military leaders to determine what is torture and what is not torture. That is the critical consideration.
Mr. Kane, of course, you're familiar with the long-running debate we've had about whether waterboarding constitutes torture or is it an enhanced interrogation technique. In the last campaign, Republican nominee John McCain and Barack Obama agreed that it was torture and should not be allowed legally, and that the Army Field Manual should be the methodology used to interrogate enemy combatants. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree, sir?
I agree that it was an enhanced interrogation technique.
And then you would support it as president? You would return to
Yes,
that policy?
I would return to that policy. I don't see it as torture. I see it as an enhanced interrogation technique.
Congresswoman Bachmann, your opinion on this question that our emailer asked?
If I were president, I would be willing to use waterboarding. I think it was very effective. It gained information for our country. And I also would like to say that today, under Barack Obama, he is allowing the ACLU to run the CIA. You need to understand that today, when we interdict a terrorist on the battlefield, we have no jail for them. We have nowhere to take them. We have no CIA interrogation anymore. It is as though we have decided we want to lose in the war on terror under President Obama. That's not my strategy. My strategy will be that the United States will be victorious in the war on terror.
Congressman Paul, my spidey sense tells me we have a debate about to get launched here. I know you have an opinion you'd like to weigh in.
Yes. Torture is illegal, and by our laws, it's illegal by international laws.
How do you define torture, sir?
Well, waterboarding is torture, and many other things. It's illegal under international law and under our law. It's also immoral, and it's also very impractical. There's no evidence that you really get reliable evidence. Why would you accept the position of torturing 100 people because you know one person might have information? And that's what you do when you accept the principle of torture. I think it's uncivilized, and have no practical advantages, and is really un-American to accept on principle that we will torture people that we capture.
And
Major,
that's time.
Major, I have to weigh in on this. I have to say something.
I'm sorry, Congresswoman, just a moment, if you would, please. Let's give Governor Huntsman an opportunity to take 30 seconds on that question.
Gets a little lonely over here in Siberia from time to time.
Tell me about it.
First of all, let me thank the sailor on the ship. I have 2 boys in the United States Navy, and all they want to do is go on to fight, protect, and defend the great freedoms that we share in this country. This country has values. We have a name brand in the world. I've lived overseas 4 times. I've been an ambassador for my country 3 times. I've lived overseas and done business. We diminish our standing in the world and the values that we project, which include liberty, democracy, human rights, and open markets, when we torture. We should not torture. Waterboarding is torture. We dilute ourselves down like a whole lot of other countries, and we lose that ability to project values that a lot of people in corners of this world are still relying on the United States to stand up for.
And that is time. Thank you, sir. Governor Romney. Governor